with Ali Samana. We've got a lot of updates. It's 8 o'clock, the night is young, and we've got a lot going on. We're going to be keeping you posted on every election result coming up. It's going to be a long, hard-fought battle. Anybody that is expecting today to end early, well, they're in for a surprise. We here are very, very, very thankful that you're choosing to join us here on One Solar TV for our special election transmission. We've got a night planned for you, as you can see with my plethora of notes and everything else. आज आपको मजा भी आएगा, information भी मिलेगी और आपको hopefully you will get to learn a little bit more about how the US election system works than anything else. I've got guests lined up for you that are experts in their field. एक छोटी सी एग्जांपल आपको मैं देता हूँ कि कौन से गेस्ट हमारे पास आने वाले हैं. ये इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज है क्या जिसकी भी हम बात करें. अभी अकॉर्डिंग टू वन सोलर टीवी हमने so far we have assigned 88 votes to Biden and 85 electoral college votes to Trump. 88 for Biden and 85 for Trump so far. That's based on our sources from AP and New York Times. That's what we're assigning to Biden and Trump. But what does that mean? ये electoral college है क्या? इसके ऊपर आज एक in-depth discussion होगी कि भाई ये electoral college रखी क्यों है? Why all of this hassle, all of this mess, and what does it mean to actually have electoral college? दूसरी बात जो जिन टॉपिक्स पे आज हम काफ़ी डाइव इन करेंगे, एक टॉपिक उसमें है वोटिंग. आप में से काफ़ी लोग आज गए होंगे वोट देने के लिए. November 3rd, big day election day. अगर आप टेक्सास में हैं, if you're here in Texas, we've had early voting for the last couple of weeks. The challenge with early voting, the challenge with voting is a lot of people do not vote. You know what they've said about Texas? They've said that Texas is not a red state or a blue state. It's a not voting state. Every year in the state of Texas, more people choose not to vote than people that choose to vote. So one of the challenges that you have, that people have, is they just choose not to vote, especially the youth. So far, in early voting alone, 650,000 people just in the state of Texas had voted, aged between 18 and 29. तो चलिए एक बात हम करते हैं कि voting ज़रूरी क्यों है? Why is it so important to vote? There are a lot of countries where you don't have that option. Voting is just not an option, it's not a right. There are monarchies still in this country, but more importantly, there's democracies, so-called democracies in this country, where your vote does not matter. Even United States, here in US of A, there's been a long and hard battle for people to vote. And your vote matters. Let me give you an example. Back when the Constitution was written, the only person that had the right to vote, you had to be white, you had to be 21 or over, and you had to be a landowner. So pretty much you had to be wealthy, you had to be white, and you had to be 21 or over. So at what point did you actually get a chance to vote if you were not white? Well, it was the 14th and the 15th Amendment that actually gave people of color the right to vote. लेकिन फिर भी people did not actually get to vote. So from the time of the independence, 1776 to 1870, 94 years later, people of color had no option to vote. So now 14th and 15th Amendment, after a lot of fight, and especially the Civil War, where a lot of people lost their life, that's when 14th and 15th Amendments were ratified to give people of color the right to vote. However, it took the Voting Rights Act of 1964, fast forward another 98 years, for people to actually be able to vote. If you haven't seen, you should see the scenes of Martin Luther King marching. You should see the scenes of John Lewis and others getting hosed down with water. Martin Luther King getting arrested dozens and dozens of times. Why? What was he looking for? Yes, we say equality, but what is equality? As a matter of fact, Lyndon B. Johnson, LBJ, who was the president at that time, and Martin Luther King, the challenge they had, the disagreement they had was Johnson did not think he could get the Voting Rights Act passed. He wanted to give equality in housing, equality in job market, equality in many other things, but he did not think that he could get them equality in voting. And Martin Luther King, MLK, would not quit. And he bothered, he pestered, he did whatever he had to do to get Johnson to pass the Voting Rights Act. Voting is important. Voting makes you heard. As a matter of fact, there's nothing that a politician wants more than for you to not vote. They can just cater to a small group of people that is voting. They really don't need you to vote. So especially minorities, going out to the polls and voting counts. They do know who's voting. So they do know, by the way, I'm listening for updates as well, so pardon that, but they do know who's voting. Is County, here in North Texas, 70% of Muslims had voted early already. So I'm hoping that a lot of the remaining 30% voted. I have an update from my production team that we are updating the Electoral College, Biden to 119 Electoral College votes so far, and Trump to 94. I'm going to get an updated list of states that we are calling here as well, here in just a few minutes. तो जैसे जैसे ये states आते जाएंगे, हम आपको इसके बारे में और बताते जाएंगे. तो अब हम आते हैं कि ज़रा वोट्स के ऊपर, और हम आते हैं कि वोट्स चल कैसे रहे और हो क्या रहा है in these specific counties as well. So like we said, there are several states that we have already called for Biden, and those include, for example, those include Vermont, Virginia, the District of Columbia, Delaware, Massachusetts, Maryland, Kentucky, Illinois, and New Jersey, along with a few other states. Then there's a few states that we've already called for Trump, which, and so far we are putting 94 Electoral College votes in Trump's counter, and that's Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, and South Carolina so far. There's other states that we're going to be adding on to that as well. I want to give you some quick update. There's a lot of states that we're going to be watching as today continues. Texas is one of those. Florida, of course, is one of those. The latest update that I have, for example, in Florida, is that by 51 to 48, with a difference of a little over 250,000 votes, Trump is leading. It's 29 electoral votes. 90% of the votes have been counted or reported. However, it's still too close to call, and One Solar TV is not calling it yet. 51% Biden to 51% Trump to 48% Biden. That's a swing state. That's a key state. If Biden wins Florida, the path to the White House for Biden to be president number 46 is going to be a lot easier than if he loses Florida. It's 29 electoral college votes that are at stake there. Georgia is actually surprisingly a state that was still close to call, that was still a swing state. However, President Trump has a very strong lead there so far. With 35% of the votes reporting, Georgia is showing 56.7% to Trump right now. Still too close to call. We have 65% of the votes that are going to be coming in. So still a bit close to call. Iowa, we're still not reporting yet. The polls are going to close there in about 50 minutes. Nevada, the polls are going to close in about 50 minutes. Unke results जैसे आते जाएंगे, हम आपको बताते जाएंगे. Michigan की बात करते हैं. Let me take a sip of my chai. Michigan, so far, Trump is leading pretty heavily with 16% of the votes coming in. Trump is leading with 57% of the votes so far. Again, it's only 16% of the votes reporting, but that's another swing state that is very important for the present actually to win this. Michigan is in the column that Trump must win or has to win. Now, there's a few states that are battleground states that should not have been or were not, that surprised a lot of people. North Carolina is one of them. North Carolina is not a state that should be very tough for Republicans to win. However, as of right now, with 78% of the votes in, North Carolina is leaning 51% towards Biden. So that's a swing state that's going in Biden's direction. Ohio, where President Trump was actually leading with 3 points coming into the election, so far with 59% of the votes counted, we're looking at 52% leaning towards Biden. And again, Ohio is a must-win state for Trump as well. If Ohio does not go Trump's way, then Pennsylvania will definitely be an uphill battle for President Trump. Pennsylvania right now, only 9% of the votes counted, and of the 9%, 71% are going towards Biden or Democrats. Believe it or not, and this is the one that's the biggest surprise to a lot of people, we've heard about the blue wave in 2018, and we've heard about Texas turning blue. You might have seen those hashtags if you live here in the state of Texas. Texas turning blue is actually a very, very big deal. Back in the early 2000s, Collin County was known as one of the most conservative counties in the entire United States. It was the county that Republicans could count on that went red pretty much the entire time. However, this time, it's going to be close, to say the least. We're going to have a special update from Texas 3, which is Van Taylor and Lulu that are running in that race. That's going to be our first guest here in a little bit that we're going to have that update on. Texas, with 57% of the votes reporting. AP is right now showing Biden at 49.5% and Trump at 49.2%. It's a very small difference of just 0.3 of a percentage point that Biden is winning by. Important thing to note about Texas, we've got 38 electoral votes. I'm sorry, 38 electoral votes. Out of the important thing to note, Trump won Texas with 400,000 votes in 2016. That's a big number, 400,000 votes. We had the Senate race in 2018 with Beto O'Rourke and John Cornyn, and Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz. And Beto lost Texas as a Democrat with only 200,000 votes. So that margin, just in a matter of 2 years, was cut in half. Another very important fact to know about Texas is in 2016, where President Trump won by 400,000 votes, the demographic of 18 to 29 that voted was only 100,000 people. As of right now, we had, in early voting alone, we had 650,000 people vote that were between the ages of 18 and 29 in the state of Texas. So a lot of new voters, a lot of first-time voters may actually carry the state. And according to AP right now, Biden is leading 49.5 to 49.2 in the state of Texas. So with that, we're going to cut to our very first break. When we come back, we're going to have our very first guest on, along with some updates for you. And please stay tuned to One Solar TV as you're watching special election transmission only on One Solar TV.